I'll take a stab at that. I mean, I think I want to try and bring net neutrality to music. It's hard because they're really, they're complicated topics. Both like what makes music and successful, what makes a thriving culture, and on the other hand, what is broadband policy. I think a lot of it can be understood by just thinking about intermediaries and thinking about, in particular, some of the problems of powerful intermediaries. One of the reasons that the music world is so complicated right now and so confusing is because there's been a giant shift which has resulted in, a previous set of well-established intermediaries, namely distributors like towers or former towers, and the major labels. They were sort of the intermediaries, and radio stations, they were the people you had to go to in order to be successful as a musician in general. And so the question is whether that is changing and how fast is that changing and who will the new intermediaries be. And we're starting to see things. Now, intermediaries are both good and they're bad. If you're talking about a marketing agency that tells everybody this is the music and this is what it's like, that's a good thing. If you think of an intermediary in the form of just sort of a toll booth that you have to go through in order to reach your fans, that's a bad thing. And so this whole issue of getting the intermediaries right is really what we're trying to do in this policy sector, is to try and understand what counts for a good intermediary and what counts for a bad intermediary. Well, how does this come back to this discussion of network neutrality? My suggestion is that probably, something like a label is sort of a mixed bag. On the one hand, they are interested in a major label. I mean, labels in general are useful because they distribute, they distribute the product, they know people, they get things onto radio and so on. On the other hand, the downside of labels is that they're very selective, they may not have the most adventuresome tastes and so on and so forth. So, they're a mixed bag as to whether major labels and smaller labels, of course, are what they mean for music. But I'm going to suggest that there's a new crop of intermediaries who really seem quite completely, I don't want to go too, well, counterproductive to the world of music, and these would be large telecom companies, AT&T being the example. If we have a world where AT&T or Verizon or Comcast are major intermediaries in the world of music, I submit to you that that will not be a good world for musicians. That will be, I mean, these are, the kind of worst kind of intermediaries you can imagine. They're not from the music industry. Their interest only is collecting as much money as they can out of every single actor in the business, and they just basically like to use whatever control they have, tempered by whatever amount of regulation or competition there is, to pull out as much money out of everyone they can in the entire business. And so I'm saying that is what the danger is. I mean, some of it is this sort of political censorship at AT&T, but that's the tip of the iceberg. If you have a world where there's only one or two ways to reach customers, and if that's the pipe, and that's where you got to go through, and if they're interested in just trying to get as much money out of everybody, or inflicting their musical taste on you, which would be even worse, that is a future I don't want. And so that's why I think network neutrality is very important for music.